I looked at the topic and I thought, what on earth does it mean in God's heart or inside God's heart, Does it mean I want to get into God's heart? Does it mean I am in God's heart? Is it about what would God's heart look like? So I guess my mind went into many directions. And then on the picture they created, there was a very big, fluffy pink cloud. And I thought, what's that got to do with God's heart? So anyway, I'm so happy to share some thoughts. And of course, then as we know, there's some time for conversation and question answer. But I think the first thing that came to my mind is when we say in God's heart, what is God's heart, really? And I thought about my entire journey, my entire cycle. Because even before I came to Baba, I loved God very dearly. I think from my earliest memories, I've loved God and I've just wanted to be close to God and know that He loves me. And then, of course, finding Baba, the relationship didn't change too much. There were some accuracies in understanding Him, but the love remained the same. So I started to ask myself, where is God's heart? What is God's heart? And I realized that at this point in the cycle, God's heart is probably the most sacred, pure space that there can ever be in the whole of eternity. Baba's heart is a place where the soul can find itself and can find the highest energy that can ever be present in the entire cycle. And what does that really mean? Because sometimes we think of purity being perfection. But technically, the purer you are, the more perfect, the more complete the soul is. So then I felt a little bit of grief, a bit disappointed. And I thought, well, it's going to take me some time to become perfect. So does that mean there will be a gap, a distance between me and God's heart? And that certainly didn't make me feel very great. And I realized that the sacred space of God's heart, with the purest love that can ever exist, is a space where any soul can enter. No matter how pure you are. But there are some criteria to walk in. And before we go into the criteria, if you think in the Logic world, right? You have many people love each other in different relationships. And some people use the expression, you'll live in my heart forever. Has anyone ever said that to you? You'll live in my heart forever. It makes you feel very good that somebody values you so much that they would put you into their heart, that they have the trust that you will maintain their heart. And they know that your energy, your vibrations will match the energy of purity in their heart. And so there's a trust there. There's a trust and there's a feeling that you will add something to their heart. Most probably, for someone to say to you, you will live in my heart, it's because they have already seen that you have probably given them something so precious that has helped them to align to their own higher state of love. When you need love and somebody gives you love, when you need support and someone gives you support, that person sits in your heart forever. You'll never forget them. And this is how, in human love, we end up sitting in each other's hearts, right? And the memory of what that soul has given you, what that soul has supported you with, lives on forever. And usually when somebody feels that amount of love from you, there is a purity in your love. There is a selflessness in your love. There's a feeling that someone has gone out of their way to do something for you, which they didn't have to do. And seeing the capacity that they've extended themselves to, especially when you needed them, is what makes that love so precious. So I thought to myself, well, it's easy to put God into my heart because in every moment of knowing him, I feel like he's done so much for me, much more than I could ever do for him. And so it's easy for me to actually, bring him into my heart. In fact, bringing him into my heart makes my heart expand, way beyond my capacity. Because his sacred love, his pure love, takes me to a place of my highest love as well. So that bit was quite clear to me, that for me to put God into my heart, I just needed to really realize and experience how much value I have for this being in my life who goes out of his way at every moment to support me. But the big question is, how do I enter God's heart? And that's something else. So I asked myself, well, what is it that makes me eligible to be able to enter Baba's heart? Because if Baba's love is so pure and Baba's heart is so miraculously accepting of all of his children, well, then we should all be in his heart. But something told me that to sit in God's heart is a little bit more than that, requires a little bit more than that. You know, Baba in the Murli sometimes says, right? Baba loves the honest children the most. And that's always caught my attention. It's like, Baba, why honesty? Of all the virtues in the world, why not mercy? Why not compassion? Why not love? Why not peace? Why honest? And I realized that to sit in God's heart actually doesn't mean that I'm perfect right here, right now. Because if I was perfect, I wouldn't need any honesty. So for Baba to say the honest children who are progressing, realizing things about themselves, being open about where they go wrong, means that Baba actually doesn't bother too much about our perfection as a criteria to put us in his heart. But what Baba does want is a child who has complete trust. So much trust that what God's love can do for me is much more than what I can do for myself. And therefore, the minute I realize that, I don't want to lose God's love. I don't want to diminish even a tiny bit God's love for anything in the world. And to be able to do that, I actually need to keep myself very clean, very transparent. You know, when you trust someone, you don't block anything from them. You don't hide anything from them. Because you know that they would do nothing that is not beneficial for you. And throughout the cycle, actually, I realized how, because of all sorts of reasons, the most obvious reason is the journey of the soul, the tiredness of the soul, the emptiness of the soul. But that can show up as culture, as belief systems, as ego. And throughout my journey in the cycle, you know, the soul's heart has shrunk. And when my heart shrinks, then it's really hard to maintain this feeling of unconditional love, even for God. And so the soul learns so many mechanisms to keep its heart safe from more pain, more suffering, even from God. Because the whole identification of God, you know, the whole concept of God, the belief of God, even though we might say he is unconditionally loving, but at the same time, you know, in the back of the mind, we're not 100% sure that he's also not got another side, a side of being a bit of a punisher, somebody who might get a bit angry, because we've made him so human in all religions, in all scriptures. And so that starts to create a block between me and my honesty, my transparency with God. So for me to sit in God's heart, really, I have to remove that block. The block that stops me from revealing all that I am to him. Knowing that the more I open myself, the deeper his energy, his light, his power can actually heal the soul. So when Baba asks for our honesty, all Baba really says is, open yourself up so much that you hide nothing from yourself or from me. I love playing with dogs. I'm an animal lover. And so I've always grown up with dogs at home. And it's always been an interesting thing when, you share such a bond with an animal that the animal just lies on its back with its legs up and says, okay, you can scratch my tummy. And it offers no resistance. And sometimes it'll even just close its eyes and enjoy. And I've always wondered, how could the dog be so trusting? It doesn't even keep a little bit of its eye open to check and see what you're doing. It might even go to sleep there. That innocence, that incredible purity, in a sense, that I trust that whatever you do will be good for me. And I think that deep, deep trust in Baba, which allows me to completely open my heart and just be like that little dog, who lets God's love heal me, lets God's energy move me with such faith, but also knowing that whatever I hide from God, I'm not only hiding from myself, but I'm not allowing myself to deal with that. I'm not allowing God's energy in to help me deal with that. And this is why honesty is so, so important. So while reflecting on the topic, I realized the only thing I need to be able to sit in God's heart is this openness of my own heart to him. And this selfless, absolutely selfless love. Not even a love where I want him to do something for me. Not a love where I have expectation that he will help me. But a love through just deep recognition that this being that I have a connection with has the most sacred love for me that there can ever be in the entire history of my journey. And it's the same for all of us, absolutely all of us. If my heart is so open to God's love, then his heart is open for me to sit there. So I realized I don't need to be perfect to sit in God's heart. His love may be perfect, but he doesn't expect me to be perfect right here, right now. And I also realized that God's heart might be such a sacred space, but because of his incredible grace, his mercy, and his compassion, God's heart has always been open for each of his children. I don't even believe that it's only Brahmins who have a right to Baba's heart. I think God's heart is so accommodating, so unlimited, that over the last few centuries, many of his devotees who have that incredible selfless bhavna, that selfless, deep, profound love for God, where they would die for him, really, and some have. Many of them felt that they sat in his heart. Because a soul who is so open to God is very valuable to God. A soul with no ego, no blockage, no rejection, is one who can actually carry God's love and God's energy. You see, if I block Baba's love because of some fear, because of some feeling of imperfection in me, some kind of esteem issue, then what I'm actually doing is I'm blocking how much of Baba's light, Baba's power, Baba's vibration I can carry, I can hold. And this is why when Baba says be an instrument, can you imagine if you were an instrument, you were a guitar, and you have 6 strings, and you say, okay, you can use 5, but I won't let you use the 6th. You're pretty useless, aren't you? And so to be that instrument that is open to God's energy in whatever form, whatever he wants you to do, however he wants you to do that, means that I would not resist anything in life. Because the drama and God work together, no? They're the best partners in eternity, really. So if there's anything I resist in the drama, it's like I'm kind of resisting a message from Baba for my own growth. So I sort of realized that, well, for me to be an instrument for God to work, for God to carry out his task, I need to be so unblocked, non-resistant to anything that comes my way. The ego has to be so dissolved within me that when I connect with Baba, there is no feeling that I have any desire within me to do anything that is not what he wants. And in doing a little bit of churning about how I needed to sit in Baba's heart and, make that entry, it also came to me that, all vices are really just a form of emptiness. And the minute I realize that, and I want to be full, and I've honestly the experience that this world has nothing to offer that can fill me, that can fill the soul. This actually helps in building that sense of honesty with God. You know, because you can say, Baba, I love you, and you are my everything. But if there's still that fraction of dependency or that fraction of expectation from another human being, then really it's not just one Baba and none other. Isn't it? So I guess for me, the whole process of cleaning myself and allowing myself to enter that space, that beautiful fluffy cloud, that pink fluffy cloud of God's heart, is very much about being able to be open to anything, any twist, turn of drama, any twist and turn, any change in the human beings that I interact with, any twists and turns in situations that are coming my way and then suddenly, for whatever reason, disappear or go another way. And this is how I know that I can sit in God's heart. So God's heart is a place for those who choose to live a life of no desires. You know the Hindi saying, Ichha matram avidya, which means not even to have the slightest trace or the slightest knowledge of what a desire might be. Because I've actually pulled my entire focus, Baba calls it my entire interest, but focus away from this old world and really turned my whole absorption process to just the one. This is one who can sit in God's heart. God values you because at a time when he needs us so much, we're available to give everything. It's like when humans, you know, when they're touched by someone else's love and they say, you live in my heart. That's exactly what I needed, exactly at the time when I needed. And so, can I say that I am one who lives in God's heart? I'm so available to carry his energy wherever he wants. But I'm also completely living in the breeze of the wind of being able to be moved by his hand at any point in time. So for me, this is what it is to live in God's heart. And recently, you know, I was traveling. I just got back to Abu Dhabi 2 days ago, not even 2 days ago. So I'm sorry if I sound jet lagged. But I was in Indonesia, in a place, you know, which is full of the virtue of sweetness, such deep sweetness in human souls, even at the end of the cycle. It's amazing how every culture, every country, you know, retains some qualities, even at the end of the cycle. And it was quite a test for me, actually, to be in a place where people are so sweet, where you don't have any interest, you know, in taking from the sweetness of humans. you're able to appreciate it. And of course, allow that sweetness to pull up your own sweetness, but not to get caught up in it. But it also made me realize, how all of God's children, not just Baba's children as Brahmins, but all of God's children, even if they haven't recognized Baba, they, even at this point in time, when the world is crumbling apart, as long as they have that connection, might be through their devotional practices, but as long as they have that connection with the One, and they have their heart open to the One, they become instruments in their own way to sustain this world. Not the way Brahmins do, but in a way, what they call in the world humanity these days, with goodness, with human goodness through their virtues. Because what I realized in that country is that they love God so dearly, that love for God mixed with the culture of the country, the communities, which is humble. They're poor people. Poor people are naturally humble. And these two things put together, the love for God and their humility, were the two secret ingredients for their sweetness. It certainly took my breath away. And so I guess God's heart is open for all of us to step into. But it takes courage to dissolve my own ego to the point where really I am valuable to Baba. To the point where he actually says to me, "You'll forever live in my heart. I hold you in my heart. I value you so much. Because at a time when I needed you, at a time when I needed your support, you were there in the right way, in an accurate way for me, in a way that allowed me to do what I needed to do." So I might stop there and see if there are any questions, comments. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, of course. It was really so clear, so profound and wonderful that reminds me that how important, I mean, maybe the whole Brahmin life is to just have a place in God's heart. Everything what we do to gain this very precious place in God's heart. Let me see if we have any questions because I wrote it. Then if you have any questions, put it in a chat box. But let me see if there is any.
Well, I can keep talking otherwise. That's no problem.
Yeah, I don't see any questions, but I just had a one question in my mind. While you were saying that we have the place, let's say we met all the criterias, all the requirements, like honesty, cleanliness, transparency, to be selfless, openness, humility, everything. And then we have a great place in Baba's heart, and he loves us, of course, we know that. But how can we just maintain this place? It is so easy also to just drop down. What can you say about that?
Yeah, how do I stay there? Right.
Yes.
And how do I make sure I don't slip out of the heart?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I think it was in today's Murli where Baba talked about the habit. You have a habit um, of something or the other, you know? And I realized in my own Brahmin life, you know, many times I create a pattern of thinking, a pattern of being, but it hasn't become a natural habit as yet. It hasn't become my natural nature. It hasn't become something that is so automatic that I don't have to think about it. And so I guess for me, what I'm really practicing now is to be non-resistant, not to actually block any energy that comes to me from any human being, any situation. Because still the old sanskaras, you know, they kind of want to have their say, have their opinion. But I've realized how useless that is. And I guess if you want to stay in God's heart, then your natural nature has to be one that is so selfless because you're so focused on, or you could say aligned to, just relying on one, that nothing else distracts you from there. The minute I start to take from anything in the world, anything outside of God's heart, really, there is a slight selfishness, a slight sort of taking, desiring that has crept into the soul, which means that I've created emptiness, a feeling of emptiness. You know, you may not be perfect. You may not be filled to a place of perfection to stay in God's heart, but it just means that you've turned to Him to fill your imperfections. So the soul may not be complete karmatit yet, you know, where we say that, yeah, I'm completely full. No, that might take a while. But in the meanwhile, I'm not going to open myself to take from anywhere else. And if I see that happening, there's honesty in the soul to bring myself back to Baba. And the quicker I can do that, the less there's the chance of me slipping out of God's heart. So I think maintaining honesty, maintaining that alignment of taking only from one is what keeps me in God's heart. Because like I said, that means that I'm just open to His energy only. And that's what makes me valuable to Him.
That's really beautiful, and I think it's so necessary in our spiritual life to be able to really maintain this place and this wonderful life in love in this life, that we really have to pay attention whatever we do, whatever we feel. And you say one thing that I was just wondering. You say all the vices are form of emptiness. That to me it was so interesting. Maybe first time I just heard about it. Can you just elaborate this more, please?
Absolutely. So all vice begins with the one word, desire. In fact, all vices are a form of me desiring something. Even if we just go through them, you know, lust is an obvious desire. It's a desire for gratification using something physical. You think about anger. I mean, the formula is so simple, isn't it? I only get angry when I don't get what I want, or I get what I don't want, which is a form of the same thing, really. I have a need, a want, an expectation, and you don't fill it. So I get angry with you, or I get angry with life. So again, it's a form of emptiness, wanting, greed for things. It's a very obvious one, isn't it? Greed is the soul is empty and I want, or even if I have enough, I want to hoard, meaning I want to keep more than what I need. Attachment is a very obvious one, isn't it? As also, the emptiness in the soul means I need to depend on you. And the only way of depending on you is my latching onto you, latching on as in clinging to you and controlling that you don't go very far and that you remain the way I want you to remain. And that's attachment, really, isn't it? And then finally, we have the great one, which is ego, which is nothing but the emptiness of my true identity. So I hold on to a false mask, a false identity. So all form of vice originates in the word desire, want, expecting. It shows up in so many ways. And of course, that then shows up in so many different cultural behaviors. It's sort of different, in the Eastern world, the Western world, different families, different religions. But basically, it all comes from I want. And so what Baba is teaching us is, okay, you want, you need, don't fill yourself from the vices, fill yourself from me. Because the vices will not actually fill you. The vices are like anything addictive. They just make you go back again and again and again for more. But in the process, you're wearing yourself down. You're becoming more and more tired. And you're actually becoming more and more dependent on that process. Baba says, come back to me. I will fill you in such a way that you will want no more. And then the desire to hold that vice as a security mechanism, because that's what it is, isn't it? It gives me the security that I can have temporary happiness. And so Baba's saying, let go of that security and only be secure and safe with me. And that's the only way to know that Baba is my one and only one. So when there is that feeling within that I need to resort, I need to use one of those vices, even in the most subtlest way, subtlest form, then it means that I've stopped taking completely from Baba. The soul has again become selfish and interested in the world. That's why it's not our fault, really. The vices are not our fault. We lost energy, we became empty, and it's just a natural way of being.
Yeah, this is really great how Baba knows our energy is lost and we need to increase that that energy. Only we need him and his companion. So this is why he always reminds us every day, remember me, and only keep my company, no one else's. And the one thing also you mentioned, any attachment or any expectations takes away us from God's love. So we put a distance, a gap between him and us. And I think this is also very, very important. Can you just give us some tips that how can we not to do this?
Well, it's like something coming between me and God. So I want to take from him, and I know he's the only one, but there's another temporary one in between. This is what Baba calls, the adulteration of love. Sometimes he uses the example of a faithful wife, isn't it? Where the eyes are only on the husband, whatever you want, and I don't look anywhere else. And so if I start to take from any other source, doesn't have to be a person, it can be the pleasure of comfort, living a comfortable life, the pleasure of having, hot water at my disposal, of having an air conditioning going, could be any form of taking from this world. It just means that when the time comes for that object, that person, that facility to go, it's going to take me a little bit of time to make Baba my one and only support. Mm. And that gap of time is when the soul is left at risk, because whenever we are at risk, the soul is confused. Do I go back to Baba, or do I go back to my temporary support? Go look for it again.
This is so true. Please.
No, that's fine. I've finished. Yeah, it's okay.
I thought you finished. Okay. Yeah. I was just thinking that, okay, we all know that what needs to be done, but especially living in this Lokik life and the ones that who have a very close relationship with their families, the Lokik families, or living with the Lokik families, it's not always so easy. I mean, the only one is the God. They all have loving ones like grandchildren, granddaughters, or their children, their own children, or their other relatives, mom and dad. This close relationship also sometimes could easily take us away from Baba's love. Isn't it so?
Yeah, which is why it's so, so important to put God between you and every soul.
Yes, yes. And to see them as a soul, not with that Lokik relationship. Well, his teachings are really great. And if we pay enough attention, I feel like we can always be on the safe side.
Yeah, I think the primary thing that souls need these days, including Brahmins, is a feeling of being safe. As worry and fear and anxiety are increasing in the world, the opposite is safety.
Safety. By all means.
Yeah. And safety can only come, real safety can only come when I'm only dependent on Baba, when I really open my entire self only to him. But the courage to be able to do that and to let go of what the world has to offer, it requires quite a bit of experience to know, how Maya tries to hook us into all those old expectations and old attachments.
This is very true, and I'm trying to keep our conversation going, and I would like the ones that who are listening can share some thoughts or some questions, but I don't see any.
Yeah, what's happened to everyone?
What happened?
Maybe they've gone and sat in God's heart, and maybe they're feeling so comfortable and safe there.
Seems like
they don't want to come out to ask any questions. Maybe it's only you and me, Aishagul, who are sitting outside.
Yes. I think we have a problem with that.
Okay. One more thing I was churning a little bit.
Please
in the
do
last
so.
few days. And it's really been around being able to let God take over my own, I guess, purification. So sometimes, I think I know what I need to change, and I know how I'm going to do it. But I've noticed in the last few weeks, actually, that there's a little bit of ego in that as well. And so to be able to put myself in God's hands and say, okay, I will remember you. Through that remembrance and through, raising my consciousness, you guide me to what I need to know about myself. Rather than me using my head to do my assessment and my analysis of, what Sona needs to do and what Sona needs to change, let me just be silent with you. And in that silence, you tell me what shift I need to make. And so to hand over even my effort and to be open to seeing whatever Baba shows me, it's actually been a very nice process because I've seen a lot of the subtleties inside myself that I probably had not identified before. But it took a lot of courage, actually. It's a little bit like Baba says, if you don't know, you can come and ask me. And in those days, Brahma Baba was around, so you could go to him and say, look, what do I need to change? But you needed courage to do that. And I remember once I went to my senior, those days it was Dr. Nirmal, and I asked her, I had courage in those days. I don't know how much courage I would have now, but I went to her and I said, so Didi, what do I need to change? And so now I go to Baba and I say, well, Baba, you show me what I need to change. And I won't resist it, I promise. Even if it's something that sometimes looks to be a skill, a speciality, a virtue. And Baba says, well, you know what? It's not very pure. There's a fair bit of ego that you still have inside that.
Did you get an immediate answer?
Yeah, it took a few days. It takes a day, sometimes a day or two, but a realization comes. There's an epiphany, like there's a little bit of, the light goes on, like an aha moment, and you go, oh, okay, I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't even considered. So, yeah.
Isn't he great? Amazing, really amazing. There's one comment, not a question, but she's sharing her sincere feelings. I
Yeah.
can read, I guess. I cannot. I think she was sharing that rather than Baba, no one else is giving me, in the family relationship, rather than Baba, nobody gives me any trust and love. So I just noticed this, and this realization gives me a lot of happiness. And so, how can I put someone else between me and Baba? So she would like to thank you for this beautiful sharing. This is true. This is true. Okay, I think we just have just few minutes. Do you have
There is one
anything?
question. There is one question.
Is that okay?
It says it seems a little bit contradictory to only have Baba in your life and at the same time to be open to everything and everyone that comes into your life. How is that possible? Such a good question. I guess when I say to have only Baba in my life, it means to depend only on him.
Yeah.
Not that I in any way am moving away from other people, situations, or whatever life has to offer. Because Baba will work to show me what needs to be sorted out through what comes to me in life. You know, like Mike George says, what's in the way is the way. So again, if I'm open to learning and I depend only on Baba, then that truth will manifest, but it can only manifest through the drama. And so whatever Baba wants to say to me, whatever Baba wants to show me, what the truth wants to reveal to me, is another way of saying what Baba wants to show me. It can only happen on this physical world, so I can see where I'm perhaps not, I was going to say where I'm going wrong, but might sound a bit heavy to say where I'm going wrong, but maybe where I'm not quite aligned to the truth. So saying that I depend on Baba doesn't mean in any way that I move away from anyone else. I hope that's okay, that it makes it a bit clearer.